All right, this is the Pythagorean theorem and polynomials test review. So some things about the Pythagorean theorem. Please remember it only deals with right triangles. The formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. When we're missing a leg, please remember that we take the hypotenuse and we subtract it from the leg, and then we could square root that. That would be the shortcut. Or you could plug it in to the formula. Let's say that was b squared equals 5 squared. This being the hypotenuse, this being a leg, and then I would still have to subtract and find my answer, which would make me square root to get rid of b squared. So if you're unsure about that, I'm going to work some examples here in a minute. When we're missing the hypotenuse, or a hypotenuse, remember we would say a squared plus b squared, and then we would square root that entire thing. When we're finding the perimeter, I would find my values first. Let's say this was 3, 4, 5, and then I need to go back and make sure I add all of these to give me a perimeter of 12 units. So I'm going to work some of those examples, but just know this is what you're going to have to cover on Pythagorean theorem. Along with, you'll have to find the distance as well. So example number 1, find the distance from Sarah's house to James's house in miles, rounded to the nearest hundredth. So we have Sarah's house, we have James's house. I'm not sure if you could see, there we go. So right now I know that I'm given my 2 legs. I'm missing my hypotenuse. I know that because it's directly across from my right angle. Let's see if it worked that time. Okay, that says 2 miles. So I have one leg as 1.5 squared. My other leg is 2 squared. I will square root all of that. So the square root of 1.5 squared plus 2 squared gives me 2.5. I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, which really doesn't apply here. So my C value is 2.5 miles. That would be the length from James's house to Sarah's house, and vice versa. Alright, next. To get to school, you have to travel 8 blocks east and 6 blocks south. On the way home, you decide to take the shortcut back to your house. That's the dashed line. How many miles would be saved if you took the shortcut home? So first, you need to find the hypotenuse there. So we'd have a squared plus b squared. These are both legs. That would give me 6 squared plus 8 squared. I could take my shortcut and find the square root. That would be 10. So my hypotenuse here is 10 blocks. But it says how many miles would be saved. Okay, key word here, how many would be saved if I take the shortcut. So if I do not take the shortcut to travel to school, I'm traveling 8 blocks plus 6 blocks, which is 14 blocks. And they do tell me here a block is 1 mile, so that's 14 miles. If I take the shortcut, I'm only traveling 10 blocks. So when I subtract those, 4 miles would be saved. Remember, word problem, I typically need a word answer unless it's open-ended, unless it's just fill in the blank and not open-ended. So your word answer would be, if you could take the shortcut home, you would save 4 miles, or 4 miles would be saved. So remember, when you're doing saved, you have to find the original distance and subtract the new distance. Find the length of the line segment shown on the graph below. You can use the distance formula if you want. Typically, I just draw my right triangle here. Find the length of my legs. So this will be 2, 4, 6. And here would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Pythagorean theorem would be 6 squared plus 10 squared equals c squared. I can go ahead and shortcut and square root both sides. So the square root of 136 is about 11.6619. I didn't really tell you how much to round to. So let's say we were rounding to the nearest hundredth. This would be 11.66 units. Remember, since it is an estimation or we're rounding here, I could put approximately 1.66 units. What is the perimeter? If necessary, round to the nearest tenth. So same thing, I'm still given legs here. 2 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. I'm going to square root all of that. So the square root of 20 gives me 4.47. I like to leave it to the nearest hundredth or a little further even before I finish my final answer, and then I'll round at the end. It says perimeter, meaning I need to add all of my sides. So I would add 2 plus 4 plus 4.472. That's millimeters, don't get an X. And when I add those, I would get 10.472. It says round to the nearest tenth, so that would be 10.5 millimeters. So be careful, make sure you're reading the directions. Now, I didn't go through that pretty quickly. Most of y'all are pretty proficient on Pythagorean theorem. If you still feel unsure about Pythagorean theorem or word problems, please go back and look at the other resources posted on Google Classroom, even in your notes before we got out. So that was just a quick run through. If you need extra practice before the test, please be diligent and responsible and go back and look over those materials. All right, next we have polynomials. Some things you'll be asked to do: write in standard form, classify by the number of terms, classify by the degree, add, subtract, and multiply polynomials. So let's start with standard form. This was one of the things I saw quite a few issues with on the practice from last week. Remember, when writing polynomials in standard form, you have to sort them alphabetically and then by the highest exponent. So by sort them, I mean sort the variables. So let's look at an example here. So first you need to check to see if you can combine any like terms. X to the third, x to the fifth, x, y to the eighth, a, and c to the third. None of those are alike. So now I'm going to sort them alphabetically. So I have negative 9a. Even though there aren't any other a's, that is considered my highest exponent. Even though there are some exponents with a higher, degree, some exponents with a higher degree here. Some variables with a higher exponent. Let me get that right. Some variables with a higher exponent. You still work alphabetically. So written in standard form, the first term here would be negative 9a. Then you go alphabetically from there. I don't have any with a b variable, so now I have c to the third. No other c values, so that would be next. Now I'm just left with x and y. So alphabetically, my x values would come next, but I pick the one with the highest exponent. That would be 2x to the fifth. Then 5x to the third. I think that's positive. That was just a dash. So plus 5x to the third minus 3x. Now the only thing left is my y to the eighth. So then plus 2y to the eighth. A common mistake I've seen is people order it by the exponent first, and they don't even worry about alphabetically. That would cause you to get all of those wrong because they are not standard form. You have to go alphabetically and then exponent. So 2y to the eighth has the highest exponent, but it is the last term in this polynomial. So this would just be considered a polynomial with a degree of 8. So it's still classified by the highest degree, but it's not written that way. The next one, see if there's any terms that I can combine. I don't see any, so now I go alphabetically. First, I'm looking at only my x values. So I have x to the first power, x to the sixth, and x to the third. Even though these are attached, you order them alphabetically. So this one's going to be considered just with x to the third. My highest one is x to the sixth, 3x to the sixth, minus 2x to the third y squared. Then I will have minus 2xy to the third. Now I don't have any more x values. I will move to my y, my variables of y. The highest one I have now is that's positive again. is positive 3y to the third. Some crazy thing. Then plus y squared. Then minus y. Be very careful. You may want to write down some examples so you can remember ordering them in standard form, alphabetically by the highest exponent first. On the test, it will mark it incorrect if they are not in standard form. Remember, we can classify by the degree and the number of terms. So my first example has 3 terms. That would make this a trinomial. It has a degree of 3. So this could be a trinomial with a degree of 3. Remember, we also call this a cubic trinomial. It's cubic because it has a degree of 3. It asks you both terms on the test. 2x, this only has 1 term, so this is called a monomial. My degree is 1, so we can call this a linear monomial, meaning it has a degree of 1 and it has 1 term. This only has 1 term, that is a term. 3x to the 5th plus 2x squared y to the 6th, this has 2 terms, so I know this is a binomial. The degree, well, this has an exponent of 5. My degree here, remember, I add these, so this would actually have a degree of 8. So a binomial with a degree of 8. So if it has more than 1 variable in a term, you add the exponents. Next, just looking at this, I realize that it is not simplified, so we do need to simplify first. 2x squared minus 2x squared, they actually cancel out. Nothing else can combine, so I'm going to go ahead and write it in standard form just to help myself out. Alphabetically, my x variables will come first. The highest exponent is x to the 4th minus 3x to the 3rd plus 3x. Then I will go alphabetically to my y variables, so minus y squared, and then my constant term plus 6. So this is still a polynomial with a degree of 4. Okay, you get it, with a degree of 4. Once again, if you have issues with that, you can go back and review your notes and other materials. Adding and subtracting polynomials. Remember to combine like terms here. That's all you're doing. If you don't see any subtraction, you can go ahead and just combine. But I do see some subtraction. So remember, I need to distribute this negative. That would give me negative 2x to the 4th minus x squared minus 12. This entire term is gone. Now I'm just combining. So I have 12x to the 4th, 6x to the 4th, minus 2x to the 4th. That gives me 16x to the 4th. Those are gone. Standard form, I will have x to the 3rd. I don't have any. So next I have negative 6x squared minus x squared. That gives me negative 7x squared. 4x minus 4x cancel out. 27 minus 12 gives me plus 15. This would be simplified and in standard form. I could classify it as a trinomial with a degree of 4. Some of you did realize that's called a quartic trinomial. It's one of the less common ones, but it is a quartic trinomial. Another one, I have a subtraction sign. I need to distribute that all the way through. And remember, this is not subtraction, so it's a dash. Negative 2x to the 5th plus 3x to the 3rd plus 4. Combine your like terms. 3x to the 5th minus 2x to the 5th gives me x to the 5th. I don't have any x to the 4ths. Next I have 3x to the 3rd. It cannot combine with anything. Minus 4x squared minus 3x plus 4. So this would be a polynomial with a degree of 5. We actually do call that a quintic. This is a quartic. This is a quintic. polynomial. Quartic and quintic are not on your exam. Or your test, I'm sorry.